Are you sure you're going to be okay by yourself, Hailey? My mom asked for the 10th time as she stood by the door, her overnight bag slung over her shoulder. Yes, Mom, I said, rolling my eyes playfully. I'm 17, not 7. Besides, you're only gone for 2 nights. I think I can handle it. Dad chuckled as he walked past with the last of their luggage. Don't burn the house down, kiddo. I laughed and gave him a sarcastic salute. Scout's honor. As they pulled out of the driveway, I waved from the front porch, enjoying the thought of having the whole house to myself. No siblings to fight over the remote with, no parents checking on me every 5 minutes, it was going to be glorious. The first few hours alone were bliss. I sprawled out on the couch, surrounded by snacks, and binge-watched my favorite crime dramas. The house felt bigger without my parents bustling around, but I loved the quiet. I texted my best friend, Lila, updating her on my night of total independence. Hailey, house to myself. It's amazing. Come over and raid the fridge. Lila, can't. Family dinner. Don't party too hard. Winky face. Hailey, you're no fun. By 10 p.m., the house felt a little too quiet. Every creak and groan of the old pipes sounded louder, and the wind rattling the windows made me jump. I double-checked that the doors were locked and turned on a few extra lights. Around midnight, I started hearing noises outside, soft, muffled sounds like someone walking through the yard. I paused the TV and strained to listen. The noise stopped. I told myself it was just the wind or maybe a stray cat. But when it happened again, my stomach tightened. I peeked through the blinds in the living room. The yard was empty, the moonlight casting long shadows across the lawn. Get it together, Hailey, I muttered, pulling the blinds closed. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. By 1 a.m., I decided to head to bed. I turned off the TV and trudged upstairs, the stairs creaking under my weight. Just as I reached the landing, the power went out. The sudden darkness was suffocating, and I froze in place. The hum of the refrigerator and the soft glow of the hallway light were gone, leaving an eerie silence. I grabbed my phone, the screen casting a faint light, and called Lila. Power's out, I whispered when she picked up. It's probably just the wind messing with the lines, she said. Your area always gets blackouts. Yeah, probably, I said, though my voice wavered. After hanging up with Lila, I tried to calm myself. I lit a candle and placed it on my nightstand, the flickering light casting shadows on the walls. That's when I heard it again, the faint sound of footsteps outside. I crept to the window, my heart pounding, and peeked through the curtains. A shadow moved across the yard, too quick for me to make out any details. Maybe it's a neighbor, I whispered to myself. But I knew that wasn't right. The noise came again, louder this time. Then, the unmistakable sound of glass shattering echoed through the house. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Someone was inside. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands trembling as I whispered to the operator. Someone just broke into my house. Stay calm, the operator said. What's your address? I gave them the address, my voice shaking. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line. Can you find a place to hide? I slipped out of my room and crept into the hallway, careful not to make a sound. My parents' bedroom was at the far end, and I knew they kept a small lockbox in the closet where I could hide. The floor creaked under my weight, and I froze, listening for any sign of the intruders. My heart raced as I heard muffled voices downstairs, followed by heavy footsteps heading toward the staircase. I darted into my parents' room, shutting the door quietly behind me. I crouched in the closet, my fingers fumbling to open the lockbox. Inside, I found an old pepper spray canister and a flashlight. It wasn't much, but it felt better than nothing. The footsteps grew louder, and I held my breath as the doorknob rattled. Someone's upstairs, a man's voice said. Search the rooms, another voice replied. My chest tightened as I gripped the pepper spray, praying the police would arrive in time. Just as the intruders began searching the room next to mine, the sound of sirens filled the air. Cops, one of the men shouted. I heard footsteps pounding down the stairs and the crash of the front door swinging open. The voices faded as the robbers fled into the night. A moment later, a firm voice called out, "This is the police. Is anyone in the house?" I stepped out of the closet, my legs trembling. I'm upstairs. 2 officers, 1 male and 1 female, met me at the top of the stairs. The female officer, Lauren Blake, placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're safe now, she said. Let's get you outside. As we stepped into the cool night air, I saw more officers searching the yard. My neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, their worried faces illuminated by the flashing lights of the patrol cars. Officer Blake stayed with me, her calm demeanor helping me steady my nerves. You did the right thing calling us, she said. We'll find whoever did this. For the first time that night, I felt a glimmer of relief. The night felt surreal as I sat in the back of a police cruiser, wrapped in a blanket that one of the officers had handed me. The flashing red and blue lights painted the street in eerie hues, casting long shadows over the lawn. Officer Lauren Blake crouched next to the open car door, her calm voice grounding me. Hailey, can you tell me what happened? Start from the beginning. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I was watching TV, and later, I heard noises outside. Then the power went out. A little while later, I heard glass breaking, and I called 911. Blake nodded, jotting down notes. Did you see them? Anything you can remember might help. Not really, I admitted. There were 2 voices, both men. One was deeper than the other. Her eyes softened. You did everything right. We'll take it from here. Once the officers cleared the house, they let me back inside. My stomach twisted as I stepped over shattered glass and saw the chaos left behind. Drawers were yanked open, furniture overturned, and a lamp lay broken on the floor. Blake followed me, her flashlight cutting through the darkened hallway. It looks like they were searching for something, she said, gesturing to the ransacked drawers. Do you know if anything's missing? I shook my head, overwhelmed. I don't know. We'll dust for fingerprints and gather evidence, she assured me. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? I hesitated, realizing I hadn't thought that far ahead. Blake suggested I call someone I trusted, so I dialed Lila's number. Hailey, she answered, her voice groggy. Can I stay at your place tonight? I asked, my voice trembling. Someone broke into my house. What? Oh my God, of course. Are you okay? I'll explain later, I said. Blake offered to drive me to Lila's house. We'll keep an officer posted outside your home overnight, she said as we pulled away. And we'll be in touch tomorrow. I barely slept that night, and when morning came, the weight of what had happened settled heavily on my chest. Lila made me coffee, her face pale with worry. You're seriously lucky the police got there in time, she said. What if they hadn't? I didn't want to think about that. My phone buzzed with a message from Blake. Can you meet us at the station this morning? We have a few questions. At the station, Blake walked me through the process of filing a formal statement. The room felt sterile and intimidating, but her steady presence eased some of my nerves. Do you have any idea why your house was targeted? She asked. No, I said. We're not rich or anything. My parents are teachers. Blake frowned slightly. Sometimes, it's not about money. It could be something specific they were after. We'll need your parents to confirm if anything valuable is missing. I nodded, dreading the conversation I'd have to have with them. The investigation took an interesting turn when a neighbor, Mr. Roberts, came forward with information. I saw a van parked on the street last night, he told Blake and me as we stood on his porch. Didn't think much of it, but it looked out of place. What kind of van? Blake asked. Dark gray, maybe black. No windows in the back. I couldn't get the license plate. Blake thanked him and jotted down the details. This could be a lead, she said as we walked back to the car. Later that day, I finally called my parents. Hailey, are you okay? Mom asked, panic clear in her voice. I'm fine, but the house isn't, I said, explaining what had happened. Dad sighed heavily. We'll cut the trip short and head home tonight. Stay with Lila until we get there. Detective Blake thinks the break-in wasn't random, I added. We'll figure it out, Mom said. Just stay safe. When my parents returned, they worked with Blake to inventory the house. It wasn't until Dad opened his office that a glaring clue emerged. The safe's been tampered with, he said, crouching to inspect it. What's in the safe? Blake asked. Dad hesitated. Some important documents, and a pocket watch. It's an old family heirloom. But it's still here. Blake's brow furrowed. A pocket watch? Why would someone go through all this trouble for that? It's been in our family for generations, Dad explained. It might have some monetary value, but nothing extraordinary. The revelation raised more questions than answers. A breakthrough came when the police matched fingerprints from the scene to a known burglar, Tyrell Dawson, with a history of targeting suburban homes. He's part of a local crew, Blake explained during a follow-up meeting. They're known for planning jobs meticulously. This wasn't a random break-in. My chest tightened. You think they were after the watch? It's possible, Blake said. But we're still piecing it together. The idea that I'd been caught in the middle of something bigger made my skin crawl. Throughout the investigation, Blake became more than just a detective to me. She checked in regularly, offering reassurance and advice. You handled yourself better than most adults would have in that situation, she said one afternoon. Her words meant more than I could say. As the investigation progressed, I realized how much I relied on her calm demeanor and dedication. Blake wasn't just solving the case, she was helping me rebuild my sense of safety. A few nights after the police had taken fingerprints and wrapped up their initial investigation, I was home with my parents when there was a knock at the door. Dad opened it cautiously, revealing a delivery driver holding a package. Delivery for Carter, he said, handing over a box. We didn't order anything, Dad said, but the driver shrugged and walked away. Mom and I joined Dad in the living room as he opened the box. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 words written in bold, black marker. We'll be back. Blake arrived within minutes after we called her. She examined the note, her jaw tightening as she folded it into an evidence bag. They're trying to intimidate you, she said. It's a scare tactic, but we're taking it seriously. Mom looked pale, her hands gripping the arm of the couch. What do we do now? They already broke in once. Blake reassured her. We'll increase patrols in the area and keep an officer stationed outside your house for the next few days. If anything feels off, call me immediately. That night, the tension in our house was palpable. We locked every door and window, triple-checked the alarms, and turned on every outdoor light. Around midnight, I thought I saw movement in the backyard. I froze, staring out the window, but the shadow disappeared before I could make it out clearly. When I told Dad, he brushed it off. It's probably an animal, he said. But I wasn't so sure. The next day, Blake called a meeting with my parents and me. We believe the crew might try again, she said. They're clearly after something specific, likely the pocket watch in your safe. Why would a pocket watch be so important? I asked. Blake shrugged. It could have more value than you realize. We're looking into whether it might be tied to something bigger, an auction, a collector, or even a criminal network. To catch the crew, Blake suggested setting a trap. If they're as determined as I think they are, they'll try again. But this time, we'll be ready. The plan was simple but risky. My family would leave the house, giving the illusion that it was unoccupied. Meanwhile, Blake and her team would monitor the property from an unmarked van parked down the street. We'll keep you at a safe location, Blake said. The goal is to catch them in the act. I agreed to the plan, though my nerves were frayed. The thought of those men returning, their voices still echoing in my head, made my stomach churn. We spent the evening at a nearby motel, watching TV to pass the time. Blake kept us updated via text. Blake, all quiet so far. We'll notify you if anything changes. Hours ticked by with no news. Just when I started to think the crew wouldn't show, Blake called. They're here, she said, her voice calm but urgent. Stay put. We've got this. Blake later recounted how the robbers entered the house. They'd used the same point of entry, breaking a window in the back. This time, though, they moved quickly and with purpose, heading straight for the safe in Dad's office. The officers waited until the men were fully inside before making their move. They were caught off guard, Blake said. One tried to run, but we got him. By the time the dust settled, 3 men were in custody, including Tyrell Dawson, the man whose fingerprints had been found earlier. While we felt relief that the crew was caught, Blake's investigation raised new questions. Why would a seasoned crew like this target your house for a single item, she asked. There's more to this. She revealed that during the arrest, one of the men mentioned the watch by name. It's the Harper piece, he'd said. Dad looked stunned. The Harper piece? That's my great-grandmother's maiden name. Blake's expression darkened. This isn't just a robbery. This watch has a history we don't know about. The next few days were a blur of research and revelations. Dad contacted extended family members to learn more about the watch, while Blake reached out to experts in stolen artifacts. We discovered that the watch had been crafted in the late 1800s by a famous artisan and was rumored to contain a hidden engraving, a map to a stash of gold coins. It sounds like something out of a movie, I said, unable to believe it. Blake nodded. But if it's true, that explains why they were so determined to get it. Just as we began to piece things together, Blake delivered unsettling news. One of the men we arrested is cooperating, she said. He claims there's someone higher up pulling the strings, someone who still wants the watch. The news left my family shaken. What does that mean for us? Mom asked. It means we stay vigilant, Blake said. But I promise you, we'll keep you safe. Her words were reassuring, but the lingering threat was impossible to ignore. The days following the arrest were filled with unease. Knowing the men who broke into our house were behind bars offered some comfort, but the idea that someone else was still out there kept me on edge. Mom hovered over me constantly, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. You shouldn't have to deal with this, she said one evening, her voice trembling. It's not your fault, I replied, trying to sound stronger than I felt. We're all dealing with it together. Dad was quieter than usual, spending hours on the phone with relatives and pacing the house as if searching for answers. Blake stopped by the house with new updates. She brought a folder filled with photos and documents related to the watch's history. It's a remarkable piece, she said, pulling out a grainy black and white photo of the watch. The engraving inside has historical significance, which likely makes it priceless to the right buyer. Dad frowned, holding the photo. I had no idea it was this valuable. It's just been sitting in the safe for years. Blake gave him a serious look. Someone knew about it, and they were willing to go to dangerous lengths to get it. The cooperating suspect revealed that the crew had been hired by a man named Victor Lang, a known trafficker of stolen antiques. Lang operates a network that deals in high-value collectibles, Blake explained. If he's behind this, it's likely he planned to sell the watch to an international buyer. What happens now? I asked. We've issued a warrant for Lang, she said. But he's slippery. He's been evading us for years. The weight of her words sank in. Until Lang was caught, we couldn't truly feel safe. One evening, Dad gathered us around the dining table, the watch sitting in its velvet-lined box at the center. We need to decide what to do with this, he said. Keeping it here doesn't feel safe anymore. Mom nodded. We could donate it to a museum or hand it over to the police. I stared at the watch, its intricate details catching the light. What if they find us again? Blake had already advised us to relocate it to a secure facility, and we agreed that was the best course of action. The next day, Dad and I accompanied Blake to a high-security storage facility. Handing over the watch felt like letting go of a family heirloom, but it was the right thing to do. It'll be safer here than in your home, Blake said as she locked the box into a vault. I felt a strange mix of relief and loss as we left. Part of me hoped this would be the end of the ordeal, but another part wasn't so sure. Life started to return to normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every car that slowed near our house, every unfamiliar face in the neighborhood, made my heart race. I confided in Blake about my fears. It's normal to feel that way after what you've been through, she said. But remember, you're not alone. We're keeping an eye on things. Her reassurance helped, but the shadows of that night still lingered. Just as we began to breathe easier, Blake called with alarming news. Lang has been spotted in the area, she said. We believe he might be looking for the watch, or for leverage. What kind of leverage? I asked, my stomach twisting. Your family, she said bluntly. We're increasing patrols near your house, and I'll personally oversee your safety. The thought of being used as a pawn in Lang's scheme was terrifying, but Blake's determination gave me strength. Blake's team made progress when they intercepted a phone call between Lang and one of his associates. The conversation revealed that Lang was planning another move, but the details were vague. He's desperate, Blake told us during a meeting at the station. And desperate people make mistakes. Her confidence was reassuring, but the tension in our house was palpable. Every knock at the door, every phone call felt like a potential threat. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a loud noise outside. Peering through the blinds, I saw a man lurking near the garage. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone and called Blake. Someone's outside. I whispered. Stay inside. Don't engage, she said firmly. Within minutes, police cars arrived, their lights flashing as officers searched the property. The man was gone, but they found fresh footprints in the dirt near the garage. This was a warning, Blake said. Lang's testing us. But we're ready for him. As frightening as the situation was, it brought our family closer together. We spent more time talking, supporting one another, and leaning on the neighbors who had rallied around us. Blake became more than just a detective, she became a friend. Her dedication to keeping us safe was unwavering, and her quiet confidence inspired me to face my fears head-on. I know this isn't easy, she said one afternoon, but you've shown incredible resilience. You're stronger than you think. Her words stayed with me, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's light to be found. Lang's presence in our area pushed Blake and her team into high gear. They tracked his movements using surveillance footage and intercepted more of his communications. He's getting sloppy, Blake told us during a meeting at the station. We believe he's planning a last-ditch effort to recover the watch. My parents exchanged worried glances. What does that mean for us? Mom asked. It means we'll catch him before he gets another chance, Blake said firmly. Her confidence gave me hope, but I couldn't shake the unease that lingered every time I walked outside. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Lang's associate, who had been arrested during the first break-in, decided to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He confirmed Lang's plans, Blake explained. Lang believes the watch's engraving leads to a hidden cache of gold coins from the late 1800s. It's not just a collector's item, it's a treasure map. The revelation was both thrilling and terrifying. Lang's obsession wasn't just about money, it was about power and legacy. "We're organizing a sting operation to take him down," Blake said. "But we'll need to use the watch to draw him out." The plan was risky but calculated. The police would leak false information suggesting the watch was being moved from the storage facility to a secure location. Lang wouldn't be able to resist. "We'll have officers stationed at every entry point," Blake explained. "The second he makes a move, we'll have him." My parents were hesitant to agree, but Blake reassured them. "Your family will be protected at all times. You have my word." Despite the danger, I felt a strange sense of determination. Lang had terrorized my family for long enough. It was time to end it. The operation was set for a Friday night. My family stayed at a secure location while the police executed their plan. From the safety of the safe house, we watched the events unfold through updates from Blake. "Lang's vehicle just entered the area," she texted. "We're in position." The tension was unbearable as we waited for the next update. Finally, the call came. "We got him," Blake said, her voice steady. "Lang's in custody." The details of Lang's arrest were almost cinematic. He'd attempted to break into the storage facility, unaware that it was surrounded by plainclothes officers. When he realized it was a trap, he tried to run, Blake later told us. But we had him boxed in. Lang's capture brought a wave of relief, but it also raised more questions. What drove him to risk everything for this watch? During his interrogation, Lang revealed the full story. The watch's engraving pointed to a location in Northern California where a notorious outlaw had allegedly buried his fortune. "It's been a legend among collectors for years," Blake said. Lang believed he could be the one to uncover it. The watch itself was returned to our family, but my parents decided to donate it to a museum. "It's caused enough trouble," Dad said. I couldn't agree more. Even with Lang behind bars, the experience left a mark on all of us. I still jumped at sudden noises, and I rarely stayed home alone. But over time, those fears began to fade. Blake continued to check in on us, her presence a comforting reminder that we weren't alone. "You've come a long way, Hailey," she said during one of her visits. "You're stronger than you know." Her words felt like a badge of honor. The ordeal changed how I saw the world, and myself. I realized how much courage it had taken to stay calm during the break-in, to call for help, and to trust the people working to protect us. Blake became a role model for me. Her unwavering dedication inspired me to consider a career in criminal justice. "You'd be great at it," she said when I shared my thoughts. "You've already proven you have what it takes." If there was a silver lining to everything we'd been through, it was how much closer it brought my family. We spent more time together, appreciating the little moments that had once seemed ordinary. One evening, as we sat around the dining table playing cards, Dad said, "You know, this house feels different now. Safer." I smiled, knowing exactly what he meant. Months later, as I wrote the Reddit post recounting my experience, I reflected on everything that had happened. The fear, the uncertainty, and the strength I found within myself. Lang and his crew were gone, and the watch was no longer a source of danger. But the lessons I'd learned would stay with me forever. "I'm not the same girl who hid in a closet, terrified of what might happen next," I wrote. "Thanks to the police, and to people like Blake, I found the courage to face the shadows. And I came out stronger."